All right. Well, welcome to another episode today of Tree Service Marketing Profits, where we go over tree service marketing topics. We interview multi-million-dollar tree service companies, and we also bring in other helpful people in the tree service industry that can help with your businesses. Today, we've got Dan Stacy, head of sales with Capflow Funding. He's going to be going over 3 solutions for financing your tree service business when those needs do arise. Some of them are basically payroll financing or factoring, equipment financing, and then supply chain finance. So Dan, welcome to the podcast today.
Thanks, Wesley. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet you guys.
Yeah, so why don't we get into kind of who you are and what you guys do and maybe when you guys started. And you guys are also fellow members of the TCIA, just like us, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Capflow Funding, we're a full-service direct lender headquartered in Rutherford, New Jersey. We were founded about 14 years ago by 3 ex-Wall Street execs. We mainly provide supply chain finance, factoring, as well as equipment financing solutions through ourselves direct. And also we have, one large partner we work in conjunction with on, larger tree service deals on the equipment and supply chain side.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a great resource, and it's really timely, and which is the reason why you're on the podcast today too. Is most business owners do face those growing pains in their business where they need more equipment, or perhaps they've bought a lot of equipment or have suppliers they owe funds to, and they're waiting on jobs to pay out, so they have those gaps in funding or financing that they need. So you guys are a great resource, I think, to go ahead and just get started, kind of get that process going, so that you don't wait till it's too late, right? Like you don't want to wait until it's bottom of the 9th inning, right, to get this started. It's good to kind of get ahead of it, right?
That's exactly right. As a business owner, you always want to be proactive on, exactly getting ahead of what's coming down the pipe and sourcing the correct financing, whether it be for payroll, on the job side, as well as sourcing workers to, perform the jobs, as well as having the right equipment in place, to perform the jobs. As a lender, what we always like to do is we like to be proactive on kind of seeing what's emerging just in markets in different silos across the country. So, maybe 5-6 years ago when, 4G was a thing, now it's 5G, we realized that is a huge opportunity and, lent a lot of money to 4G cell phone upgrading companies. Then, 2019 came along, we saw the tree service business kind of another emerging silo with the wildfires going on in California.
Sure.
So, what was happening there was, PG&E was maybe going bankrupt one day, going bankrupt the next, and, ultimately did go bankrupt, having to, pay out $5 billion to the wildfire victims. So, that ultimately became another, emerging silo for us to finance, and continues to be so today, especially with a lot of people leaving the major cities and going out to the suburbs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see that too. And those wildfires are crazy, man. It seems like they just kind of came on and got it blazing out there on the West Coast. I mean, it was happening in what, like Colorado, California? You guys are mainly like working on the California side of it, correct?
Yeah, I would say 90% of our clients are based in California,
Mm-hmm.
rather working in California. While they're based, all around the country, a lot of them migrated to California just for the extra work.
Yeah.
Big problem during that time, and still to this day, is finding good help, because it just really was not there. It's still not there. And it's going to be a problem for the next, I would say, 5 to 6 years, with a lot more work to be done there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just like the drought, I think, is what's bringing a lot of this on, and just not enough rain to keep everything moist enough to where it just doesn't get out of hand whenever there is a fire. I mean, we were watching a lot of that stuff on TV as it was going down, and it just seems like every other month there's a whole nother one going on. So yeah, tons of tree work out there. You guys are kind of helping finance a lot of that. I guess we'll get into kind of the first one that you guys do, which is the factoring and kind of the payroll financing. I guess you could just explain like how that would help a tree service business owner, and how, like, what you see as far as helping them kind of bridge those gaps and get that funding in place when they need it the most.
Sure. Oftentimes I'll relate it to, let's call it, what's going on in California. A tree service company will win a job, and, they'll have to perform the work on a weekly basis. billing out on a time and a material basis. And, they'll go from, it'll be a tree service company that's maybe a small mom and pop doing, let's call it $50,000 a month. And now they're doing, $100,000 a month and growing. And, every week they have to bill out to, let's call it PG&E or SoCal and, they're waiting by the mailbox, oftentimes 60 to 90 days to get paid. But at the same time, they have to pay their workers on a weekly basis. So what we do is we speed up that cash flow process. So on a weekly basis, we're able to, based on their accounts receivables, advance them 80 to 90% of the money owed to them by the larger entities, whether it be government or private entities.
Awesome. Yeah, that just kind of helps. Yeah, exactly. Because sometimes those contracts take a little while to pay out, but meanwhile they've got payroll to make with all the people helping them make that happen. And so that can be a challenge. It's a squeeze on your finances, a squeeze on your liquidity because you've got all these people to pay. You don't want to say no to the contract that you just got awarded, right? So you take on the work, but yeah, there's going to be some cash flow challenges along the way, which that just seems like it's going to really, really help them as long as they get this in place up front and early, because it's not like a residential or just a quick commercial job. Some of these where
That's
you get
a really
paid on
good
the
point.
spot. Yeah, you don't get paid right there on the spot. You got to wait like 30, 60, 90 or something, correct?
Exactly. And, what I heard from a lot of my clients was, what, Dan, I'm really good at running a tree service business doing, $1 million a year. But now that my tree service business is doing $1 million a month, try to source guys, pay my guys, and also have the proper equipment in place all at the same time. It's a huge juggling act, and I really didn't know what I was signing up for when I got into this.
Right.
And a lot of people relocated their mom and pop businesses to California, to get this work, but they didn't realize really what came with that work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a juggling act for sure. That's 3, 4, 6, balls in the air trying to juggle. I can probably relate some of that. I wonder if this pertains or kind of would actually help some of the business owners we work with too. They will see a hurricane come through somewhere in the Gulf or the Atlantic coast, and then they'll literally up and relocate 2 or 3 crews to that area to go do insurance work. I wonder if something like this would be beneficial for them in those circumstances as well. Can you think of any kind of examples of that?
Absolutely. So we have clients now that do exactly that. They're more or less storm chasers for a living. There's actually an association called the Disaster Association. Mm-hmm. Wish they came up with a better name for it. But what they do basically is, anytime there's a hurricane or tornado or, kind of any non-man-made disaster, they'll go and be deployed there, to fix up that area. And typically, who they bill is mainly the local municipalities, or they'll bill FEMA. And what we do is obviously, again, they're going to experience that cash flow crunch because out of nowhere, they just got hit with a, humongous job they weren't expecting. And we saw this back during, Hurricane Sandy days, where just crews of people were being deployed, all up and down the eastern seaboard. So what we were doing was obviously financing those efforts. So, crews of guys were fixing, various things that needed to be worked on up and down the eastern seaboard. And they were either billing insurance companies, local municipalities, or FEMA. And we were advancing them, based on those invoices or, monies owed by those entities.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And everybody can feel, or everybody's probably felt that pinch or squeeze from the insurance company, right? You got a claim, you need to get something done, or you get it done, and then you're sitting there. It's kind of a waiting game on getting that check from the insurance company. So yeah, that I can see how that would be super beneficial. Dan, let me ask you this quick question. Once somebody gets approved, let's say they come and they do the application process, you get all their financing information, accounting information, kind of see what they're owed or whatnot. How long does it generally take maybe to fund a company like this when they're in a time of need?
Sure. So once we get a completed application, a balance sheet, an income statement, an accounts receivable schedule, an accounts payable schedule, that same day we'll issue a term sheet, once just outlining the pricing and structure for the prospective client. Once the client signs the term sheet, generally speaking, we take 7 to 10 days to fund the business. One thing unique about Capflow as a lender is we actually meet every client we lend money to. So wherever you are in the United States, we're actually going to come see you, shake your hand, and kind of get to know you, because oftentimes we're going to be lending you money more than just accounts receivables, and payroll.
Right. Yeah, especially with these other couple that we're about to discuss as well. Well, that's cool. That seems pretty quick. I mean, that's quick enough to where they can get the cash injection they need and take care of what they need to with payroll and then wait on the contract to pay out. And then, of course, they can shore you guys up right after that. Um, yeah. Okay. Well, cool. That sounds very beneficial for people. The next one is something that we kind of talk about a lot with our clients. So they're kind of telling us all the new equipment they get, right? They're showing us the trucks. They're showing us the loaders. They're showing us, the just different things that they, the booms and all these different pieces of equipment they buy. Everybody loves their equipment, chippers, and so we see this all the time. But we know at the expense of the tree service business and the equipment. I mean, it does produce a lot of revenue once you get the equipment in place. You can take on more jobs than you could otherwise and grow faster, which is kind of the need for equipment in the first place, and also just to be able to be more efficient as a tree service company. But the equipment financing side too, you guys are big on and strong on. So I guess just kind of talk with our audience about maybe what that looks like. Do they need to locate or secure a piece of equipment, or kind of have a contract to purchase a piece of equipment first before they come to you, or go ahead and just get maybe pre-qualified with you guys and then start shopping?
Sure. Yeah, it's again really about being proactive on the business coming down the pipe. But to your point, I love looking at all the new pieces of equipment that comes out, each year. Especially at the TCI Expo, it's kind of like a Mr. Rogers for grown adults.
Oh, I love that place, man. I mean, there's so much equipment. It's like almost like a football field full of equipment.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this year. So
Yeah,
what we do is we assist them, and obviously if they need help sourcing equipment, we could help them with that. But if they have a piece of equipment they're ready to finance, we work very closely with a publicly held bank down in Texas that can get them pre-qualified in 24 to 48 hours. And it's really heavily based on really the healthiness of the business. So we'll look at their balance sheet and their income statement, as well as their personal credit. And based on that, we'll give them kind of a number that they can back into what they pre-qualify for on the equipment side.
Okay, gotcha. So it's a pretty quick turnaround, really. 24 to 48 hours is kind of the approval process. And then from there, I would assume your funds then go purchase the equipment, and then the tree service business owner then has terms with you guys.
That's exactly right. We typically like the owner operator to have a piece of equipment in mind.
Mhm.
Hopefully they can send it to us in a kind of a PDF form. A lot of guys like to, take a snapshot with their cell phone and text it to me, but I'd like to have, kind of the real specs down on a PDF brochure. That's always helpful. And like I said, if they don't have, a piece of equipment in front of their face that they want to buy, if they have something in mind, through our dealer network, we're able to actually help source those pieces of equipment as well.
Cool. Yeah, no, one of the bigger pushes the last several years has been these spider lifts where they can just kind of wheel those things in between fences and all that stuff. We got a lot of clients that get those, and the pictures they take of those, like with aerial shots and drone footage and things, man, it's fascinating, the pieces of equipment they have today, because you just can't drive a truck down somebody's yard or in a backyard or any place like that and not just completely rip apart the entire yard. These spider lifts, man, they get in there and they can shimmy through pretty much anything and get in the backyard where others can't. So that's been a big piece of equipment we've seen. Have you guys seen a lot of those too, like the spider lifts and things like that?
Yeah, certainly. Definitely, fits and starts. It's mainly heavier in the residential side of the business we see, but definitely you could always use it on a commercial job as well. But yes, obviously one of the more innovative pieces of equipment in the industry that's come along since the bucket trucks. So sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Certainly
they're constantly coming up with these.
I've seen the paradigm.
Yeah, I've seen these new ones too. I don't know if you guys have financed any of these, but they're incredible. It's almost like a transformer type piece of equipment. So it's like this big crane. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Of course, while we're talking, it's going to be tough for me to think of it, but it's this big piece of equipment. It's almost like a crane, but it literally reaches over a house into the backyard. It's so long. It'll grab the tree with this grapple type thing, and it's got a saw attached to it, and it literally saws the part of the tree off, and this grapple just picks it up and brings it back over there and lays it down.
I saw it. I saw it on actually YouTube on an international tree channel. And I actually thought it was fake when I first saw it. But
yeah, it literally almost eliminates the need for a climber like at all. Like you literally just park that thing in front of somebody's house, and the crane is so long, It literally reaches over the house or over the property,
Yep.
grabs it, grabs the top of the tree, and then saws it like a couple of feet up underneath where it grabs it and just lifts it up just piece by piece. I was like,
Yeah.
man,
It secures the top and then just really cuts the bottom and lifts it over the structure and then places it in the truck.
yeah,
Pretty cool.
that is cool. I mean, I don't see, you get a couple of those going. I don't, you probably your personnel doesn't have to be quite as high either when you get equipment like that.
Yeah. I was always terrible at the crane game as a child, but that's definitely one for adults. It looks definitely pretty fun to operate.
Yeah, I think so too. I've talked to a couple of guys that are like, it just takes a lot of patience, and you just got to sit there and it's kind of a touchy feely thing, kind of probably with any kind of piece of equipment. But he's like, you just got to be super careful with it. You can't get too crazy with with the gears and all that stuff. You just got to be super relaxed in that thing and kind of learn how to just feel your way through each little place you're going with it, which I assume takes quite a bit of time to kind of learn. But yeah, so the next thing, so equipment finance, that's a big one. So I'm glad we went over that. It sounds like you guys can help people with that within 24 to 48 hours, get approved, and then they can locate and secure the piece of equipment. And from there, they basically are just waiting on, I would assume, the manufacturer to get them the piece of equipment from their particular place they're sending it out from, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. So then the next piece, I guess, would be the supply chain finance that they owe other vendors, and they're still waiting, to kind of get the payment they need. So you guys can do like a cash infusion for that too. So let's talk about a little bit about the supply chain finance and how you help them with that part.
Sure. So the first line of financing we spoke about was factoring, which is basically providing liquidity on a company's accounts receivables, which is money owed to them by their clients. Conversely, a company has what's called an accounts payables schedule, and that's money they owe their vendors. So oftentimes, companies will secure larger and larger jobs as they grow and scale their business. And oftentimes they need money on the front end to complete these jobs and commence the projects. So what supply chain finance does is it's actually a vehicle whereby we do 100% accounts payable financing. So we pay their vendors 100% on the front end. The only caveat to that in terms of getting approved is we like to see the vendors being credit worthy. So in factoring, obviously, we want to see the debtors be, credit worthy. On the accounts payable side, we want to see the vendors be credit worthy. Oftentimes these guys will go into new areas and they'll need, let's call it hydraulic oil, or they'll need, safety equipment, or they'll need, even rooms for their guys to sleep in, when they're doing jobs on the road. And supply chain finance, finance is just that.
Okay, so it's based on really the vendor that they owe, their credit worthiness at that point.
Yes. So what's paramount, to getting those deals done is, number one, have a signed contract, with no offsets, and it's a contract, obviously specific to your company. It's not a company it's not a subbed out contract. So obviously your company has to be on that contract we see. And then number two is we want to make sure that those vendors are credit worthy, because we're going to go out and actually take credit insurance out on those vendors that you're dealing with.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So you guys are literally, once we look at all the solutions you provide, I mean, you're typically can take care of, their factoring and payroll financing. You can do their equipment financing, and then also their supply chain finance. I mean, is there any other things that we're missing here that you guys can provide? It sounds like pretty much any type of funding a tree service business or tree care business, arborist, any of these types of companies out there need financing for. Sounds like you guys can pretty much take care of them.
Yeah, the only other, I guess, type of financing that we haven't spoke about would be, kind of term loans. So, oftentimes, a company may not have a need for payroll, may not have a need for equipment, may not have a need, for even paying their vendors, but they do have a need for the business. What I mean by that is, you have a company, maybe they just do residential work, or maybe they do work for municipalities or the private sector, and they need money to, market the business, maybe from an SEO point of view or social media point of view, and they need to go ahead and, hire a marketing firm. We're actually able to get a company, term loans, that are payable, anywhere from a year to 3 years time. We could do obviously shorter durations for these term loans, as little as 3 month durations. But I always recommend going out as long as possible and, paying. But obviously, if you're going for a mortgage, you rather go for a 30-year mortgage instead of a 10-year mortgage. So I think that's the same thing with these term loans that we're able to offer. So, we're able to
Interesting.
offer term loans above and beyond receivables, payables, and equipment.
Yes, interesting. So that's kind of like a sort of, if you will, a commercial line of credit for the business.
That's exactly right. It is a finite amount, and it is a loan as opposed to a line of credit, but it's payable on a weekly or monthly basis back to us, the
Right.
lender of record.
Yeah, like upfront terms, like we got to pay every 30 days or every 2 weeks type thing. That's great, because sometimes you have a need for something that's not quite as specific as the three that we mentioned, like you're talking about. So they can just get like a regular business line type thing with a pay schedule with you guys and do it that way, which is good. We've seen a lot of that too over the years, a need for that anyway. Pretty much every business, and also the tree business. Well, this has been interesting, Dan. I appreciate your time, man. I think your company is well aligned to help the tree service industry, which, as you well know, you guys are already doing that for a number of different tree companies and different sounds like projects going on in the industry, especially the wildfires out west and things like that. So, and then also being a fellow member of the TCIA, it's nice to connect. And I mean, we'll see you guys too later in the year in Indianapolis. We've got a booth already set up, kind of ready to do that puppy. We didn't get to do it this past year. We had to do it virtually, which was definitely not the same. But yeah, man, I think this has been eye-opening, and I think it's a great connection for anybody that's definitely looking to get kind of pre-approved and kind of get the ball rolling on just knowing they've got this in place when they do need it. Because it's always better to kind of get these things, I think, solidified up front to make sure you do qualify, you get everything going. As long as your tree business has probably been doing any kind of revenue for some time, they shouldn't have too many issues, as long as they kind of get out in front of it and do it early. Is that kind of correct, Dan?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And just going back to that, term loan product, generally speaking, we'd like to see the business open for at least 2 years, and we're able to give 10% of the last year's revenue as a loan amount. So if you're looking for, if any listeners out there wondering how much they qualify for, generally speaking, it's, a month's sales, a month's revenue is what we're able to get in the form of a term loan.
Okay. No, that's very helpful. I think that kind of paints the picture for everybody. They get a visual of how much they probably could get, which for $1 million company, that could be upwards of $100,000, right?
That's exactly right.
Okay. No, that would help for sure. I mean, anything that they're looking to do to expand operations or anything that wouldn't fit into the category of the factoring and payroll financing, equipment financing, or supply chain finance, I think that would be super helpful. And it's always good. I mean, with any business, I've been a part of a few other businesses in my past, to always have some sort of line of credit just ready to tap if needed. Kind of that like, oh crap, line of credit, like we need this now. And it may not even be a situation where you're in a dire need for money. It's just that it would be nice to be able to use that money instead of the cash sitting in your bank account, right?
That's exactly right. It's a great safety net to tap into. And, what we find is a lot of the residential mom and pop companies definitely take advantage of that product. With factoring, it has to be a business to business transaction as well as supply chain finance. But with, this term loan product, it's a one size fits all product. It could be for business to business or business to consumer. It could be for a tree company doing, $500,000 in revenue, or for a company doing, north of 100 million in revenue.
Awesome. Well, that's definitely flexible. Well, good, man. This has been great. This has been very informative, and I think the audience will get something out of this. And also, we definitely don't want to part without getting all of your contact information if somebody wants to reach out to you and all that stuff. So why don't you go ahead and share? We're going to put it also in the show notes of the podcast episode and the YouTube channel. But just go ahead and let them know what your contact information is or where they can go to find out more and get in touch with you.
Sure. Again, my contact info is my name is Dan Stacy, just to reiterate, and my direct number is 516-244-5590, and my email address is dstacy, DSTACY, at capflowfunding.com. dstacy at capflowfunding.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, man. So I think that the website would be capflowfunding.com, where they can kind of find out a little bit more, give you guys a call if they want to, set up something with an application, or just maybe talk a synopsis or a scenario that they got coming up, right?
Absolutely. I welcome any, I guess, scenario, or if someone just really wants to kick tires, just really understand more on how the product works, I'm happy to field any calls or emails.
Awesome. If you guys reach out to me, I can always point you in the right direction too, to Dan. If you don't have it if you're listening to it on the podcast, maybe you're in the car or something, you can't write it down. It is going to be in the show notes, so you can reference it there. But if not, reach out to me. I can send you over Dan's contact info. Well, Dan, I appreciate your time today, man. And I look forward to seeing you later in the year at the TCIA Expo. And you have yourself a nice Friday, man. Did you have any parting words or anything?
No, you know what? I appreciate the intro, obviously, to Tree Service Digital. I think it's a wonderful thing that, you're doing for, the members out there, because a lot of people, they're kind of bogged down, running the day-to-day operations of their business, and they don't think of these things. So it's, good that you're helping them out, and doing this service for them.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for plugging in and, being a part of Tree Service Marketing Profits. And we look forward to talking to you soon.
Likewise. Have a good day.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Megan.
Bye-bye.
Bye.